Hello and welcome to the Stuff I Heard podcast. I am your host, Josh Peak. Good morning. Hello. How are you? Well, it's morning for me. I know for some of you, you're listening to this at night. So thanks anyway. It is morning for me. It is the 20th of June, 2020. We are, most of the house is sleeping, put it that way. I have a habit of getting up early because I get up early all the time. And it's one of those things where I think they call it their circadian rhythm. Whatever your body gets used to doing, your normal periods of time when you get sleepy versus when you get up. Some people have to completely flip flop theirs because they work third shift. God bless you, people. I've been those people before. It's very rough, but my current rhythm is to get up super early. So I was up early. Um, Anywho, today is Saturday. Tomorrow is Father's Day. And so to all the fathers out there, including my dad, my stepdad, my father-in-law, my other father-in-law, it's an American family. We got more than one dad out there. Happy Father's Day to all you, to all my friends and family who are dads. Happy Father's Day to you as well. I know it's usually the holiday that most people skip over. For mom, we always go all out because, they birthed us and nurtured us and encouraged us and all that other stuff. But dads sometimes don't get credit. Dads kind of, let's face it, some dads are busy a lot because they're at work. They're trying to provide. Some dads don't want to be dads and they skip town. Some dads do all they can and they still don't get any credit because that's just how it goes. It's a very thankless job. Uh, but, you do what you can. I think part of the stigma of being a dad and it being a thankless job is the fact that men are not supposed to be very vulnerable. We're not supposed to admit our own faults. We're not supposed to admit when we're wrong, and we're wrong a lot. The thing is, what nobody really tells you is when you become a dad that you don't have any instructions. You're not really told what to do. A lot of times you don't have another father figure to ask, hey, how would you handle this situation? And even he's like, I don't know, because we don't know. We don't know. My stepson right now is a dad. He's got a soon to be 4-year-old son. And when things come up, he's like, what do you think? And I was like, well, I mean, this was how I would handle it, but I don't know if it's right. And that's kind of the way you're supposed to think you're supposed to look at it is I can tell you what I would do, but I don't know if it was the right thing. I mean, who knows? Everybody's different. Everybody's kid is different. Every situation is different. I learned that a lot this past week. I mean, I've been learning it over the years, but I especially learned it this past week listening to a podcast called Time Suck by Dan Cummins. I went on this rabbit hole of listening to him talk about serial killers and these awful situations that these young men grew up becoming serial killers. And it was gross and terrifying and seemed to have a consistency of just neglect. A lot of neglect, a lot of abuse, whether it verbal or mental. He does talk about, the debate over whether a serial killer is developed in nurture versus nature. And they think that overwhelmingly it is nature and not nurture, but both could be a contributing factor. I listened to some really crazy ones, and I had heard of some of these characters. I don't know if it was from the news or from movies. Certain characters are based on movies, like the Ed Gein, Butcher of Plainfield, episode 76. He was basically the character that they modeled the Texas Chainsaw Massacre guy over. Also, the Silence of the Lambs. This guy made skin things, skin furniture. He wore skin suits. Where do you think he got the skin? Okay, so let's just put it that way. Pretty awful guy. Pretty awful. But as a podcast, I mean, this was early on. He was just starting to get his feel for how to do these. So I kind of bounced around a little bit just because I was curious of some of these characters. He actually references them once in a while. There's a guy named Ed Kemper. It says episode 130. Ed Kemper was the co-ed killer. He is, I don't know if you guys watch Netflix. There's a show on there called Mindhunter. And Mindhunter is basically about the FBI learning to categorize these mass killers as what they call now serial killers because they followed a pattern. Part of their beginning to profile people was talking to people like Ed Kemper in prison, who was very intelligent, very open to talk about whatever he had done and explain why he did what he did. Ed Kemper was like a genius level guy of intelligence, but very, very violent man. When he decided he wanted to kill somebody, he just did. He was 6'9" and over 300 pounds. And he was like, when you talk to him, he was always described as being very gentle, very kind, until he wasn't. And then he just could wreck you. I mean, just within a second. I listened to that one. That one was really interesting because there was a pattern of nature where it just seems like Ed was just wired to be that kind of guy. Listening to it, the host is Dan Cummins. He's a stand-up comedian, but he also enjoys history and stuff like that, and he enjoys researching this stuff and talking about it. And he makes a lot of jokes along the way to make it a little bit more lighthearted. Still, I mean, being able to watch Mindhunter and then go, "Oh, that's that guy," because I mean, obviously it's not that guy, but they have a guy in it that's playing him that you kind of connect the dots of going, "Oh, I see. Okay, that's okay." The main thing that I took away from listening to that episode was don't hitchhike if you're a girl. Don't hitchhike ever, 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 ever. Wow. Then I listened to episode 148, Albert Fish, New York Killer and Super Creep. Albert Fish was terrifying in a whole different way. He did a lot of bad things to children. Really creepy guy, hurt a lot of people. He's basically where they came up with the name Boogeyman because of him. Terrifying, just terrifying. Dan does a good job of making it funny when it was awful, but it's pretty awful. It's a pretty awful story. I listened to I listened to a lot of his this past week. I didn't talk about it in the last couple episodes just because I didn't know what I was going to say. I listened to a really interesting one about Napoleon Bonaparte, episode 141. Apparently, the stories of Napoleon being short was actually propaganda from the British. Napoleon was a Coruscant who was basically taken over by the French. His dad decided better to join than to fight them. Coruscant, of course, was Italian at the time. They joined the French, and Napoleon rose to power. He went to military academy. He became a leader and was a very powerful leader. He is often regarded as a hero, in a sense, in developing Europe as a country, giving them a lot of good ideas for the way to govern themselves that's still used today. He came up with a lot of really interesting ideas that actually are still used today. He was also a bit power hungry, like some of these guys happen to be. And of course, any opportunity for England to undermine him or defeat him, they did. Part of their depiction, because Napoleon used propaganda a lot to talk about how great he was, even in situations where he had lost a battle or something. He would always proclaim, how wonderful everything turned out. And, he was sort of a master of propaganda, and also a really interesting strategician, I guess you'd call it. He's also the reason that America has grown the way it has. Thomas Jefferson was able to acquire the Louisiana Purchase to help Napoleon in his war efforts. The problem that I learned was Napoleon went after Russia. when he was already fighting in all different directions. He almost conquered all of Europe except for Russia and England. If it wasn't for Russia and England, he would have conquered all of Europe. Russia gave him a real big pushback and halted that pursuit. Apparently, he was not ready for the cold winter. He also went after Egypt. He wanted to be like Alexander the Great, and went after Egypt and did not prepare properly for the hot summers, 134-degree temperatures. So, I mean, for all of his strategies, there were moments where he made bonehead moves. But apparently the height thing, he was reportedly between 5'5" and 5'6". Now, the way they described it is that during the time, the French and the English had different systems of measurement. And so when it was reported that he was 5'2", that was on a different system of measurement. When they did the conversion, he was between 5'5" and 5'6", which at the time was actually tall for people of that time. Most people were about 5'4", 5'5". But the British wanted to undermine him and show him as being not that great a person. So anytime they could depict him in pictures, they always made him very short as sort of a way to slight him. I had no idea about that. That was interesting. But it's a very, very interesting podcast to listen to. Again, that was episode 141. It came out in April of 2019. Very cool, though. Really cool. I listened to episode 196 about the Wendigo. It apparently was a Native American kind of like boogeyman. It was sort of the story of like a warning for their people not to turn to cannibalism. Apparently, there was a long period of time where cannibalism was popular, and sort of a way to get people to stop was they would talk about this boogeyman, the Wendigo, and how it would consume people, and they would eat flesh, and they sort of like warning against it, and if they did, they would be killed and that kind of stuff. But there's a lot of Indian folklore that was tied into there, and the Wendigo apparently was the main boogeyman of the time. Again, it was like a warning not to consume flesh. Episode 195, Genghis Khan. He didn't go into great depths on Genghis Khan like some people do. If you guys know who Dan Carlin is, Dan Carlin has a podcast called Hardcore History. I listened to them years ago. He did like a 4-part series on Genghis Khan that was really fascinating. Dan Carlin is a hardcore historian. Like, he loves it. And he had studied all sorts of history on Genghis Khan and went into a deep dive talking about, he compared things from Mongolian lore to, at the time the Romans had captured some documentation about Genghis, different Chinese emperors had it dictated what was happening. There were missionaries apparently from the Crusades that were dictating what was happening. And he sort of compares all these notes and gives as true a history as possible about what really happened. Now, back then, you could just click on it and listen to it, but it's become super popular and it's grown, and now those are behind a paywall. I think you have to pay like maybe $3 or $5, something like that, to get behind the paywall, and then you can listen to all of the content. It's just because I think it's because he's hosting his own and it's on his own server, so he's paying for server space. Some people do that. Mark Maron has done that. Mark Maron allows 50 of his latest podcasts to be available on his WTF podcast. And if you want to go back further, you got to pay for the paywall to go back further. Doug Benson does it too with his Doug Loves Movies. And getting Doug with high, whatever. See, back then they didn't use things like Anchor, like I use Anchor to do my podcast, but they didn't have that kind of stuff back then. So it is what it is. I would like to talk a little bit about, since we're talking about podcast, I listened to a really good podcast. Joe Rogan interviewed Bill Burr, episode 1491. I think it was last week. They go into a deep discussion about Joe's deal in a way, and also about the fact that there are companies out there and let's not even say companies, let's just say people. There are people out there that are trying to buy podcasts. They're trying to tell you that they're out there to help you, that they want to help monetize your podcast. They want to help bring you more advertisers. They want to grow your podcast because you're so great. Those people are basically desperate to try and make a living off of nothing. They don't want to do any work. They're going to basically what they're going to do, they're going to get you to sign a contract saying that they own your podcast and they're going to pay you for however much your podcast grows. And in that first year, they're going to do everything they can to pay for, advertising, marketing, getting your name out there, putting it everywhere that they can. And it will grow numbers that first year. And then you just keep doing the work and they get all the benefits. The paychecks come to them and then they decide what to give you. And they can choose to give you whatever they want. See, this is the underlying thing that nobody says. They can just write you a check and be like, well, we had overhead this month because we paid this much for advertising and this much for this and this much for that. And so your chunk is actually this much. And they can just basically control what you get paid from that point on. It has nothing to do with you. Not only that, but let's say you get tired of them and you don't want to deal with them anymore. They bought your podcast and they own it. So you can't even continue. Anything you do goes to them indefinitely. So, sort of a warning. Bill Burr put this out there. He was like, don't sign anything like that. Don't ever. He's like, one of the things he doesn't talk about is the fact that him and some other friends, some other comedian podcasters got together and they formed their own group. They formed the All Things Comedy Network. And basically it's him and Al Madrigal and Bert Kreischer, Ari Shaffir, a few other comedians. They all got together and they said, let's form our own, basically like a coalition or corporation. They call themselves All Things Comedy. They're able to then put their own money into it and go after advertising and saying, hey, listen, we reach this many million people as a group. Would you like to advertise with us? Because this is how much our numbers are. You could reach this many people. And then whenever the advertising dollars come in, they divvy it up by whoever is getting the numbers and they split it up. However, they just make it fair for each other because it's, like I said, again, it's a group of friends, a group of podcasters, and a group of comedians that are all in this together. And that's beneficial. That's actually something that I wanted to do in the future with creators like myself who just continue to crank out content. If you have the ability, why not go after it? It's rare, very, very rare, that you have someone like Joe Rogan who just paves his own path and says, screw it, I don't care if I get paid. I'm going to do my own thing. And he did his own thing for I think he said a good 10 years before anybody ever gave him any money. That's hard to do anything for that long and not get paid for it. I mean, let's be honest. He just felt like, if I don't do this, I'm going to go crazy. I just want to do this. Just a compulsion, kind of like the way I did. I just felt like I had to do it, a compulsion. But he's like, I'm going to do my thing. And then if people want to advertise, then great. I'll entertain that idea. But if you look at the overwhelming podcasts that are out there, that's very rare that someone is able to A, do that, and B, have it pay off eventually. Now, is my goal to have this pay off eventually? Sure. I mean, that would be great. That would be awesome. It's not my main goal. My main goal is just to do it because I enjoy it. I enjoy talking to people on this. I enjoy having conversations. I enjoy growing this community that we're building. If it grows into something that eventually helps me pay the bills, I mean, that would be awesome. Right now it's not, but it does help pay for the lights and the cameras and the Wi-Fi and then, whatever, this microphone. But there's a lot of people out there that are getting started and it's easy to go, yeah, I want to sign the deal. This is what I've been working for. And they don't have a platform for real yet. They're sort of finding their way and they're easy to pick off because they're young and they're impressionable. And people go, oh, well, I can give you this much, blah, blah, blah. And people are like, oh yeah, let's do it. Let's sign it. And before you know it, they signed their life away and they can't create it anymore because if they do, then they're under some kind of lawsuit of copyright and ownership. So have that be a warning. I've been contacted a lot. I haven't talked about it much. I've been contacted a lot through email, through phone calls. I don't know how people are getting my phone number. Hey, we'd like to talk to you about, forming a group. We have a podcasting network and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, no, because I can tell right away they ain't listening to my podcast. That's the first thing that you start listening about is they don't have any idea what you talk about. They have no idea who you are. They're just fishing. It's basically like casting a line out into the void of people and going, let's see what I can catch. If we get, I don't know, let's spend a little bit of money. Let's get in 5,000 podcasts. Okay. I'm just throwing a number out there. Let's get 5,000 podcasts. And let's say all together, we're able to then take this to advertisers and go, hey, they're doing basically what Bill Burr was doing as his group with Al Madrigal and Bert Kreischer and Ari Shaffir and all them as the All Things Comedy Network. But they're doing it without being invested in it at all. They're not creating any content. They could give a rat's ass about you. They don't care about you at all. They are literally just trying to build something out of nothing. They're trying to get their piece of pie so they can sit back and do nothing and just collect checks and then divvy you out your little change of whatever they think you're worth. You could be killing it. You could be on top of things, and you're not going to get that money that you think you're worth ever, because they get to decide what to pay you. Let's say we'll put it in round numbers. They get $100 bill in their hand and they go, well, I don't know, we got 5,000 people to divvy this out to. I think everybody gets 5 cents. What? They can just go to everybody and say, listen, it costs a lot to get this thing going, and we got legal fees and we got this and we got that, and this is what your payment is. I don't even know if that's a good number. If I just threw out a number that actually equals 100 or what. I know somebody out there is a mathematician and they're like, dude, that doesn't even add up. Okay, so I didn't think about it. I'm just saying. If you're used to getting, let's say that you're used to getting a payment every month of, we use the $100 method. Okay. Let's say they give you $100. Okay. And you keep doing it. And in a year's time, you're killing it. You can see your numbers going up, and they go, well, legal fees have gone up and blah, 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 blah. We can only afford to pay you $70 this month. They're taking the money off the top end for themselves as profit because there's people to get paid. This is the idea about radio. Okay. In radio, like you've heard podcasters talk about going into radio, and they do an ad for, I don't know, Sherry's Berries or something like that. And when they're in there, they're like, okay, I know how much I get paid to read an ad for Sherry's Berries, but if you do it, not only do you have to get paid for it, but everybody in this office has to get paid for it. All the advertisers, all the producers, all the engineers, all the office people, all the secretaries. You have to buy pens, papers, notebooks. You have to have insurance. You got to pay for this building. You got to pay for electricity. You guys are getting dirt for this, whereas I know what I get for this, and it's great. So why would you want to be in radio? What's the upside? What's the upsell? I think Bill's point was do it yourself. Just do it yourself. That's Joe's point. Just do it yourself. If there's other creators out there that are listening to this and you want to do it yourself with me, hey, reach out to me. Seriously, I'm not playing around. In life, you have a choice of what you can do with your pursuits. You can sit back on your laurels, or you can lean forward and go into it. I'm leaning forward. I'm ready to kick this thing into high gear. I mean, there's no reason that we can't do whatever it is we want to do. All it takes is effort. I got effort. Do you have effort? Or do you have that drive? Do you have that motor inside of you that says, hey, let's go after it? Why not? What's the challenge? You got to learn? Okay, we can learn. We have the internet. There's plenty of people teaching online what to do. Need money? Okay, let's get started. We can do whatever. That's my point. All of us can. Anybody listening to this, you have it within your power to do anything you want to do. Just set your goals on it and get off your lazy butt and do it. If you need that kind of motivation, I'll tell you that. Call me. If you want to be encouraged gently, come on, you're the best. I'm not that kind of person. Sorry. But the point is, don't sign on with somebody who's not invested in you. Do it yourself, grow it yourself, reap all the benefits, learn what you can. If you can't learn, reach out to other creators. They'll help you learn. They'll help you take ownership of your own thing, but don't sign away ownership, no matter how enticing it looks. I can't tell you how many emails from people, corporations and companies and fake people. Oh, we really like your podcast. Love what you do. We'd love to form a group, blah, 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 blah. And I'm like, I click on their stuff and there's nothing there. They're nothing. They're not a thing. It's some smart person sitting with a computer going, I got to figure out how to make a living at this. I'm not doing anything. Just think about it. I did watch on Netflix F is for Family. The latest season is out. Bill Burr is the main creator of the show. He's the main character of the show. It's very funny. Laura Dern plays his wife. You'll hear lots of voices in it where you want to look them up and go, wait, who plays that? It's really cool. Really, really cool. It's growing in popularity. It's growing in people wanting to be on the show as characters. So Sam Rockwell was on this past year. It's pretty good. Each episode's only like 20-something minutes long, so it's pretty easy to go through them all. There is a new season of The Politician on Netflix. You guys probably don't remember, but The Politician was on, I think, a year ago, and it was basically about a kid who was going up for a school class president seat, and it was sort of mirroring what was going on in politics on television with our own politicians. But this is on like a high school level. Interesting enough, the main character is a dude that was on the High School Musical show. Very talented guy, really good singer. Great show though. The first season was awesome. The second season is out. I haven't watched it yet. It just came on yesterday. I don't know when I'm gonna get time to watch it, but I do want to watch it. I've been watching the '70s show on Netflix right now. You can watch it, and without commercials, each episode's only like 22 minutes long. It's pretty easy to go through, and it's refreshingly funny. I'd forgotten how funny it was. The characters are good. The character development is good. Their interactions are funny. I know right now there's a big thing with Danny Matheson. In the news, he was just supposedly charged with 3 rapes between 2001 and 2004. Now, being charged doesn't mean he actually did it. It just means they have enough evidence to have a case. So it's going to come down to a court case to find out whether or not he's guilty. I'm hoping he's not. I mean, I like watching him and stuff. He's pretty funny. But if he is guilty, then I want him to find out that he is guilty and prosecute him. I mean, you know, if you're a dirtbag, eventually you should get caught. If you're not a dirtbag and people are just trying to take advantage of you, then that should be revealed as well. I don't know the situation. I don't know what's going on with him. Hopefully it's nothing, but I don't know. I'm hopeful that he's a good guy. I guess because I like his character on the show. But I mean, I'm not blind to the fact that there are false allegations once in a while. But even if there's false allegations, you would think, because the allegations have been out there for a while, that they wouldn't even have a case if they didn't have enough evidence to then prosecute. Because otherwise, they're liable for slander? Is that a thing? I don't know. I'm drawing straws here. But again, I'm hopeful that that it's just nothing. I realize in saying that there's someone out there that may be a victim. They're like, "Screw you, man! He actually did this to me." And if that's the case, then I'm sorry. I don't know. I just say I'm hopeful that it's not real. It's sort of like when we found out Bill Cosby was a serial rapist. In a lot of ways, a lot of us were like, "I hope this isn't real." I mean, he was like America's TV dad for a long time. You just hope it ain't real, you know. And then when you find out it was, you're like, "Ew." Holy crap. So anyway, I'm going to shut up. I don't need to talk about that. I realize I'm wrong no matter what I say in any of that. Anywho. So anyway, tomorrow is Father's Day. Please remember to call your father and just, happy Father's Day. Thank you for my bicycle when I was a kid. Thank you for teaching me how to ride. Thank you for teaching me how to, whatever the thing is. Thank you for not killing us. what all the times I made you super mad. Thank you for not destroying everything. Whatever the situation is. Call them up and tell them thank you. I think it'll mean a lot. They don't need much. I'm a dad. I don't need much. I don't actually need a phone call. It'd be nice, but I don't actually need it. That's the thing. After years and years, you kind of grow thick skin of being like, yeah, whatever. I mean, it is what it is. I just want you to become healthy and happy and do your thing. So that's it. That's the lesson for today. Be healthy, happy, and do your thing. Happy, healthy. Did I just make up words? Healthy, happy, healthy, whatever. I'm going to get off here. Thank you to everybody who's listening. Thank you to everybody who's been a part of the podcast. Happy birthday to Kelvin. Today is Kelvin's birthday. He's been on here. If you want to hear more about that, he was on the mental health episode, A New You Counseling Center, Kelvin Bryant. Yeah, happy birthday, Kelvin. Y'all take care. Thanks for listening. Please remember to rate, review, subscribe, share with your friends. And as always, cue the cow.